Hey guys, Big Dan Bates here on a rainy morning, but that's okay because I'd rather it be raining today than tomorrow when we're hitting the road to start the big trip here to the Smoky Mountains. So I'm pulling the rig to work today. On my lunch, we're going to go over to the Catskill and get weighed, make sure we're road legal. We are fully road ready, meaning everything that's coming with us is in the RV or in the truck, with the exception of some blankets, pillows, and maybe some clothing, which will all be taken into account. So I'm going to open up the one of my two cat apps, the one which you'll be seeing right here. So the first one it's just called Catskill. And you see my folder here. You can see it here in the center. This is going to allow us to locate a local cat scale. Now, I know where my local cat scale is, but is that a little dark right there? I don't know if that helps at all. So it opens up here. We see Find Cat Scale. We just simply launch that. Click Near Me Now. And there is the TA in Paulsboro. 6.8 miles away. That is the one we will be going to. So if you click that or find whichever one that you may be going to, when you click it, it's going to come up. It's going to give you their information. It's actually going to show you a map. You can actually hit get directions, and it gives you the option. Do you want to open Waze, Apple Maps, Google Maps, the Uber app for whatever reason? I guess you have to be Ubered there. So I already know the way there, and I know it's RV safe. So for our intents and purposes, I'm just going to click on Waze. But again, if you're traveling to areas you're unfamiliar with, and my Grand Design Imagine back there only sits like 11 2, maybe 11'2". So I'm pretty safe for most places. My biggest concern are low-hanging branches. Most wires and bridges will accommodate my RV, but if you're traveling to unfamiliar territory, again, I highly recommend you you join RV Trip Wizard and then use their RV Life app, because it is RV safe directions, and it'll let you avoid tunnels that don't allow propane, or they'll take you ways that are going to prevent you from going under a low bridge. I'm not actually going from here. I'll be going from work, which is halfway between here and there. So let's roll out, get on the road, and we will pick back up when we're over there. It is approaching lunchtime, and I am heading to the Catskill to get weighed up. Let's go. Alright, we are pulling up to the Catskill. I'm going to launch my Weigh My Truck app. This is going to sync. Boy, that is pretty bright exposure. I don't know what's going on with that. Now, as you can see here, it has already located where I am. We're accepting that, yes, we are at Catskill 778, which is actually up on that post there. All my information is there. We're weighing Little Gem. Accept the fee. Waiting. I don't know why that exposure is so terrible. Processing payment. Now here it's giving me all my information, and I'm going to click, first of all I'm going to screen capture that, and then I'm going to click done. Alright, and that's it. We're ready to pull away now. We've been weighed. We can go about our business. Alright, I'm back. It's been a very long day. We're trying to get everything done and ready and just, in the morning, just drive out of here. So, we've been to the Catskill. Now, if you've seen my prior video, we were talking about gross combined weights and my magic number. So, if you look, when I went to the scale, the number I weighed in at is 13,940 pounds. Now, if you remember, if you saw that video, my magic number for my RV and my truck was 13,795 pounds. We're over. How did that ever happen? Well, it happened because I filled the fresh tank. I dumped water into the black and the gray tanks. I put a third canister of propane in my bed of my truck. I put a couple of cases of extra water in the RV. I intentionally tried to push it. I didn't know where I was, but I figured I was either close or over. I intentionally tried to push it because, so now we've got weight and we found out we're over. What are we going to do? So a couple of things I want to talk about here. So first thing, I want to put up the graphic here to show you. After you go, if you use the Catskill apps, when you go, you're going to get, I'll show you the graphic here, the picture, the screen capture. This is what they give you. But then in your email, you will receive the actual full proper PDF like printout of if you would have went inside and got your ticket afterwards. And that's a real kind of thorough, that's a more official document. We don't need that. RVers don't get flagged into weigh stations as you cross state lines and are asked to get weighed typically. That's not really an issue. So let's talk about these gross combined vehicle weights, what they really mean if you're sticking to that 20% safety rule, and where it applies, but more importantly, if you weigh over, what to do about it. So these gross combined weights are figuring on that 20% margin that I took off. So my truck can tow 10,100 pounds. I initiate the rule of 20% safety because at 10,100 pounds, you're pushing your safety limit because, again, it's not about what your truck can tow. It's about what your truck can stop. And once you start getting higher than that, you're going to have issues stopping. So I only tow less than 8,000. In fact, that RV maxed out is under 7. So if I'm running a little heavy, I'm okay because I still have 3,000 almost pounds of leeway before my truck runs into any real danger of not being able to stop. So let's get the first thing straight out of the gate. You are okay if you're at or slightly over your max combined weight if you are utilizing that 20% cutoff of your max towing. Now, the camper and truck have their own individual max weights, and why they have that is again, after that maximum, you could start experiencing problems. For most of your newer RVs, the big problem of an overloaded RV is you start having leaf spring issues or possible tire blowout issues. Again, if you use that 20% safety of, well, my tire says 75, but I'm only going to go 60 or 65, blowouts have become a much, much more minimum risk. So, yeah, so I'm slightly over. So what do I do to fix it? Well, because I intentionally overloaded things, it's really easy. I unload all of the nonsense, the excess. I drain down some of my fresh water. So, for instance, if I have 60 gallons of fresh water in my tank, which I never travel with a full tank typically, I said I don't need it. Well, I haul the extra weight and deal with the shaking and everything else. So that's almost 500 pounds right there. So if I take half of that away, there's 200, and it's like 240 pounds gone. I had stuff in my gray tanks. Now, you can't just dump your black tank on the side of the road. Gray tanks you can kind of typically get away with because it's just, you know, dishwater or shower water. It's not really contaminated water. So ecologically, you could probably let your gray tank go. It may have a little odor to it because sometimes gray tanks do. So that's an option. If you're boondocking, you can kind of let your gray water trickle down your sink and right out your open line. Unfortunately, you can't dump a black tank. So you'd have to find, if you're running heavy and your black tank's getting full,
you got to find a truck stop, a station somewhere, a campground. Always, every time I'm filming, and it's always scam likely. You'd think I'd be smart enough to turn my phone off when I filmed. Anyway, find a KOA somewhere that'll let you dump, and that'll help get that out of the way. So depending on the size of your fresh tank, like I said, you can minimalize how much fresh water. Kind of think, how much fresh water do I really need before I get to another spot I can add more water? That's the biggest improvement. If I ever had to, I could drop, 40 gallons out of 60 gallons, and there's 320 pounds gone right there. I mean, that's almost me. That's like taking me out of the car. The better your truck. Think about what you have that you don't need for that trip. I have almost triplicates of all the tools. I have a toolbox in my truck that has every odd and end tool, wrench, all that in it. I have a toolbox in the RV with a drill and everything else. In the undercarriage, I have a drill and I have some other channel locks and screwdrivers, so I don't have to go inside and dig out my big toolbox if I'm just hooking up or something. I have a lot of heavy tools that are duplicates and sometimes triplicates that I could just remove from the equation. So if you do decide before taking a big trip to check your weight to make sure you're traveling safe, know you do have that cushion. Now, if you ever travel on a little heavy and you do get called into a weigh station, you may be a little over your max combined weight. And I'm not real sure what the penalty for that is. But if you're observing those 20% safety margins, you know you're safe as far as the truck's ability to stop you. And that, in the end, that's what's getting you home at night. So, yeah, think about those issues. More than anything, I want this video to demonstrate how to use the apps. If you're an RVer, you can just pull right up to the scale. I do apologize about that last clip, how overexposed it was. Something happened with this little camcorder I had inside that the exposure was set to manual, and it was probably me. I was probably tinkering in there and bumped it. But yeah, so when you get your apps, one of the first things you want to do is set them up. The CatScale app, to where you just hit your nearest location, you don't have to really do anything with that. But the Weigh My Truck app, you got to create a login, you have to create a profile, you have to add a credit card to it, some sort of payment source, and then you'll have a login. And then when you get to the scale, obviously you have to log in. It recognizes, as you saw in the video, where you are, the scale you're at, and then you just go through the buttons, hit accept. You'll have to log in, which should only take a second. And then it gives you an instant readout. I mean, it really is pretty amazing. Now, if you're a person who's really anal about weighing, you already know all this stuff. What I found interesting is if you're a newbie and you go to one of these scales, there are lines. The scale is actually broken up in sections. So you want to be mindful when you pull up that the trailer axles are on a pad by themselves, your back axle is on its pad, and your front axle is on its pad. And you get the most accurate reading across what they call steering axle, drive axle, and trailer axle. And that's where you can really break down those numbers and get a better idea. Now, if you look at my numbers here, it looks like both the truck and the camper are about evenly heavy. And why I say that is you have the front axle and you have the camper axle. But that drive axle is a combination of the truck weight as well as the tongue weight coming in from that RV. So when you add them up, I mean, they add up, I'm just over. Even with everything I did, I'm just over. So that actually makes me happy, because I know once I dump that other stuff, we'll be good. I like to be under that max weight. Again, it's a safety thing. And that's Big Bill. Some of you may have heard me mention Big Bill in all the videos. He was a safety nut. So, I've had that pounded into me from a young age. And there's nothing wrong with being safe, So, yeah, get weighed, check your things. Think about where you can trim some fat off if you have to. There's always something that can be jettisoned if need be. If you're driving down the road, you haven't been weighed, you're driving down the road and you're really getting a lot of bucking or things like that, think about not only your weight, but how your weight's distributed. So like when we're bringing, say, cases of water with us, I'll put one in the way back in the bathroom, but then I'll put the other one up in the bedroom. So it's evenly weighted. So I have 2 cases of water and it's not making it lopsided. If I have a lot in the refrigerator, I try to put everything else in the cabin on the opposite side so the left-right's evened out. My freshwater tank, yours may not be, but my freshwater tank is right over the axle. So even if I run it full, that's balance. It's right over top of the axle, and that's a huge thing. And I don't know that they've always done that, so that's a big design, because if you have it closer to the back, or say your rear black tank or gray tank is full, you're going to get a lot of that kind of bucking, chocking, whatever you want to call it, as you're going over bad bumps or hills or divots, railroad tracks, and that's because you're too heavy in back. So that's another thing. We're talking about weights and towing weights. You got to not only think about where you are for weight, but how you're loaded. Even out that load. Same thing. It's just in the bed of your pickup truck. Don't put everything all the way in the front or everything all the way in the back. Try to even everything out. Like right now, I have a generator in there, a spare 5 gallons of gas in there. You know, I try to keep it over the axle or maybe a little forward, and then the lighter stuff will go in back. So just something to think about. Just be safe when you're out there on that road. These apps, just go to iOS store or the Apple, Google Play, whatever you use for your phone, and get them. They're free and they're easy to use. And in my opinion, everybody should weigh like once a year, because you're always doing add-ons and adding stuff, or you accumulate more tools or junk or camp lights or new chairs. It's a good idea, especially before a big trip where you're crossing straight lines, and you never know. One day they may flag you over to that weigh station. Just know where you're at. And if you're utilizing those 20% safety margins that we discussed in the last video, you'll always be safe. It's just a matter of those max gross weights. You know, if you're a little over and they do pull you over, it could be a small fine of some sort. I'm not sure. I've never seen an RV being flagged into a weigh station, but we're living in strange times. You never can tell what's going to happen next. You guys have a good, safe summer. Check your weights, and join us next time as we start our embarkation for the Smoky Mountains. See you.